Hi all, and this is the Truth, Honour and Integrity show coming to you live from a sunny Florida with a mild, pleasant breeze and a current temperature of 82. This is Thomas Williams and tonight is Thursday, March the 1st. Hi all again, sorry it's a bit late, I was late finishing work. This is the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams. We have the usual tonight, and a bit less on the op-ed pieces, but a lot more on the intel. And it will be interesting. So look forward to that. Where are we? Where do we start? Let's get all the details of the show out. If you want the link for the show, you can go on the Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity, or the Facebook social media at MeWe.com, and the live links are there. And it's also on Spreaker. That's www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. And you can also listen live from the articles website called thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. It's getting a lot of interest now. There's a lot of articles on there and must listen to shows. We have attracted a lot of new listeners and new members. If people want to find out the essence of this show and all the information it contains, I would suggest listening in order, and they have been put in date order, to the must-listen shows on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org, and you will catch up with a lot of stuff. The email for the show is truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com, and the People's Donations website link, thepeoplesclub.org, and there's all details about the foundation on there, so you can visit that. Right, let's start. This is going to be interesting, this show, I'll tell you. Let's get into some news and get that bit out of the way, because there's been plenty in the mainstream media that's of interest, and it's always difficult to try and put two and two together. Sometimes who's who, what's what, and I get that. And I try to update as best I can. Sometimes it's a bit cryptic, and sometimes people complain it's cryptic. Well, perhaps those people really need to listen to the show more, because it's all there. Right, where are we first? National Rifle Association, First National Bank of Omaha, has decided it will not renew a contract with the NRA to issue an NRA branded Visa card. They're all starting now. According to them anyway, customer feedback, yeah right, has caused us to review our relationship with the NRA, and they've decided to not renew the contract. Then came the next batch. The National Rifle Association lashed out at the corporations rushing to abandon it, as companies from United Airlines, jot all these down, United Airlines, Best Western have cut ties with the gun lobby group under pressure from a boycott movement following the February 14th high school shooting, allegedly. Without context, twin announcements also came from Delta and United Airlines on Saturday morning, and the end of flight discounts to the NRA's annual convention, which few outside the gun rights organisation likely knew existed before they became boycott targets. Now, it's not just United Airlines, Best Western and Delta. Car rental giants Avis, Hertz and Enterprise have also decided to boycott it. Best Western and the global insurance company MetLife and a dozen other corporations have severed affiliations with the gun group in the last 2 days. No doubt these people are connected to the Clinton group and the Democrats, because it's them that's pushing it. But we'll have more on that later. Of course, also in the news about the shooting this week, there's been a big debate about the police officers. It didn't look too good, did it? So when the Coral Springs police officers arrived at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on February 14th, in the midst of the school shooting crisis, many officers were surprised to find that only Broward County Sheriff Deputy Scott Peterson, the armed school resource officer, had not entered the building, but that 3 other Broward County Sheriff deputies were also outside the school and not bothered to enter. The deputies had their pistols drawn and were behind the vehicles, the source said, and not one of them had gone into the school. Now, with the direction from the Broward deputies who were outside, Coral Springs police soon entered the building where the alleged shooter was. And the new Broward County Sheriff deputies arrived on the scene, and 2 of those deputies and an officer from Sunrise, Florida, joined the Coral Springs police as they went into the building. But some of the Coral Springs police were stunned and upset that the 4 original Broward County Sheriff deputies who were first on the scene did not appear to join them as they entered the school, and it's unclear whether the shooter was still in the building when they arrived. Well, it says that it was in the midst of it. So those 4 particular officers, were they part of the drill? I imagine a lot more will come out about this. But talking about Broward County, there are more than 66 current investigations of Broward County Police into the sheriff's deputies and the employees, ranging from drug trafficking to kidnapping, and that's just since 2012. All the current internal investigations occurred under the embattled Sheriff Scott Israel's watch. How did he come up with these names and the links? Oh dear. It's right in your face. Whose office is now under investigation for allegations that his deputies failed to allow first responders from treating the patients at the scene of the shooting. So not only did they not go into the building, they were blocking people getting alleged treatment. And that multiple deputies failed to enter the school to defend the children during the rampage, which is said to have left 17 dead. So the 66 Broward Sheriff Office deputies, including supervisory personnel, were arrested and charged with and or convicted of crimes that run the gamut of armed kidnapping, battery, assault, falsifying records, official misconduct, narcotics trafficking, and other crimes involving dishonesty and violence in the years immediately preceding 2013. Most of the offences on that list occurred in 2013, according to court records filed by Schoen against the Sheriff Israel and the Broward County Sheriff Deputy defendants. Now, what the lawyer stated is what quite often happens is often the cases against the Broward Sheriff Office employees are resolved by guilty pleas, resulting in short or no period of incarceration and a chance for the criminal record to be cleared after a period of time. Funny how the other half live, isn't it? Different rules. International Committee of the Red Cross. I'm pleased to hear that there's a number of groups and people dropping not only the Red Cross but Oxfam. The people are fighting back. Finally, they've listened to what we've been telling them for many years about these charities. All of them are bogus. All of them have their collection agencies in the rogue banks, of which there is 5 in America and 5 in Britain. You don't need me to tell you all the names, but it's just another collection agency that involves very serious criminality. You know, it's one thing CEOs getting paid exorbitant amounts, it's another thing sexually molesting children and doing all kinds of other things, which is what they've been up to. So the Red Cross has said 21 staff members have been dismissed or resigned for paying for sexual services in the past 3 years. An additional 2 staff members suspected of sexual misconduct didn't have their contracts renewed. This is according to the Director General of the ICRC. And he said this behaviour is a betrayal of the people and the communities we are to serve. Really? You only serve them and yourselves. They've never served the people, ever. I'm sorry, you just don't. But he went on and said it is against human dignity and we should have been more vigilant in preventing this. Indeed. No, you weren't vigilant, but you all at the top are fully aware of what's going on. I don't care who likes that and who doesn't. They're all aware. It's only when certain ones get caught. And what you're finding now is far more people are now being caught and dragged in. And not just Red Cross and Oxfam, right across the board. Governments, banks, CEOs, you name it. Politicians. Now, these revelations come as other aid organisations have also been hit by allegations of sexual harassment and exploitation by aid workers. Let's not forget the UN in that also. Haiti just suspended the international poverty charity Oxfam of Great Britain from operating in the country after reports of sexual misconduct by some of its employees. Where are we next? Ireland. This is a sign of the times, and it was warned. I do believe we may stop a full-blown crisis, but we must always be on guard. I've mentioned about having money available, cash available, because if it spins out longer than this month, in one split second, banks can close literally overnight or within minutes. And what happens then? There certainly won't be any credit or debit card use. Like I said, I feel that it will be stopped, but it's best to be safe than sorry. Anyway, this online savings bank, which was set up in Ireland almost 13 years ago, and it has shocked financial advisors by saying it will close on May the 16th. So now 90,000 of its customers face a scramble to set up new savings accounts with the small number of rivals that survived the financial crisis. And the closure of a Eurozone savings bank after the crisis is unusual, although Rabo Direct is acting within the central bank consumer code, which allows lenders to give customers at least 2 months closure notice. I don't think that'll happen with the big banks. Consumer Association of Ireland policy advisor Dermot Jewell said 90,000 was a phenomenal number of customers to move accounts at one time, and he would be surprised at the short notice given. and the central bank should approach Rabo's parent company to encourage it to extend its closure period. And he said it's not acceptable, the short deadline. Word of warning. Right, this next news is all where are we next? Top Justice Department, here comes the firings. The political musical chairs rolls on, except you can't keep up with it. I think I've got 3 or 4 here, and I've just been told there's more that have gone that haven't been announced yet. But a top Justice Department official alerted the White House 2 weeks ago that significant information requiring additional investigation would further delay the security clearance process of senior advisor Jared Kushner. Now, of course, when I did this piece, he still had some sort of clearance. Obviously, the next piece will be explaining he doesn't. But the call was by Rod J. Rosenstein to White House counsel Donald McGahn came amid growing public scrutiny of a number of administration officials that were without final security clearances. Big problem. And the most prominent among them is Mr. Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, who has had access to some of the nation's most sensitive material for the last year while waiting for his background investigation to be completed. One has to ask why the background wasn't completed before he went into the White House. You know, I've highlighted the dangers of Kushner and what he's been involved in and who he's connected to. But serious questions have to be asked as to why certain people can go into the White House without a background check. And not only visit, but actually work there. You know, given all what's gone on with let's blame Russia for everything, why isn't the background investigations done before people go in there? Big lapse, in my opinion. And this comes a week after the call from Rosenstein. White House Chief of Staff John F. Kelly announced that staffers whose clearance has not been finalised will no longer be able to view top secret information, meaning that Kushner could stand to lose his status as early as Friday. Well, obviously he did. And that, to me, is a good move. I don't think we've heard the last of Mr. Kushner and his connections. And I don't think we've heard the last of Mr. Rosenstein either. ISIS. Not much of it left now, for fairly obvious reasons. To some anyway. I'm hoping more of it people got it. President Donald Trump appeared to dash the hopes of interventionists and contradict his own administration officials by declaring that US troops' mission in Syria is limited to defeating ISIS and doesn't include regime change. Well, it is a big change. And Trump went on and says, we're there for one reason, get ISIS and get rid of ISIS and go home. That is a change in policy. Take note. So during a joint press conference with Australia Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull at the White House, he reiterated, we're not there for any other reason and we've largely accomplished our goal. Funding, a big issue over there. Philippine president, another one, stepping down. Remember Mr. Duterte giving all kinds of verbal abuse out last year. Anyway, he has announced it is his intention to leave office early, citing his age and lack of will to continue leading the country. Duterte attempted to dismiss criticism that his support for a federalist political system and a reform that could give the president more control over the government meant he was seeking to stay in power past his 6-year term, which is set to end in 2022. But instead, Mr. Duterte said on Wednesday he planned on leaving his post in 2020. Lots of reading between the lines with that one. Oh, where are we next? Palestine. This is getting real serious, and this needs to be addressed, and quickly, in my opinion. There's a number of countries all around the world that are suffering and requiring urgent aid. Of course, the UN are not there to provide aid. They might tell you they are, but they don't. The Red Cross, ditto, Oxfam, and all the other nonsense charities. Meanwhile, the people suffer. Venezuela's another one. Colombia, you name it. A whole heap of countries are in desperate straits. But Gaza officials this week have declared a state of emergency as the economy reaches brink of complete collapse. The residents of the Gaza Strip now face the unprecedented consequences of Israel's 11-year ongoing siege. And this in spite of the fact that the Israeli state is obliged by international law, which they don't adhere to maintain a sound, livable condition for the residents it besieges. Kind of a misnomer there. And it has acted to purposely strangle the civilian population of Gaza. The mayor of Gaza said at a news conference much of the financial aid has now been cut, which has halted basic services linked to fuel and sanitation. Now, this was in reference to the recent cuts from the UNRWA, a department of the United Nations set up for specifically dealing with Palestinian refugees. So the UN cut funds to them. Gaza now faces an unemployment rate of above 50%, whilst more than 80% of the population are identified as living in poverty. 80%. The Gaza sewerage system has now become completely overrun and has forced officials to announce that raw, untreated sewage will now be all directly pumped into the sea. Unbelievable. Crime has also increased in Gaza due to the abject poverty, and 97% of the water is now undrinkable. The sole power plant in Gaza cannot operate due to lack of fuel, and electricity is only available for between 2 and 6 hours per day. The United Nations Security Council yesterday addressed the humanitarian crisis, but there is yet to be any action taken for the desperate population of the Gaza Strip. Go figure. Too busy playing with kids in countries and organ trafficking and whatnot. I should have put that front of it. So I warned with Kushner. He has now had his top security clearance rejected, and technically now is out of the loop of reporting back to his paymasters in the Middle East. Oops. More on Mr. Kushner and Ivanka. A top White House communications aide who has worked closely with Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump is now leaving the White House in the coming months. Josh Raphael, who was recruited to the White House by Kushner, has primarily served as a spokesman for Ivanka Trump and Kushner's White House initiatives, including the Office of American Innovation and also the Israeli-Palestinian peace protest. Really? 11 years. Well, no, it's actually what, 33, 18, 51 years to make a peace protest. Really? A White House official said in an email that Rafael had been quietly promoted to Deputy Communications Director in the fall of 2017, but is now being removed. Next one. China. This is, I've mentioned about birth rates going down, and also I don't believe that the population's anywhere near the official. With that many wars and that, 49,000 children dying or going missing permanently per day, I don't know how the population has gone up. Anyway, China, back in 2015, eased its decades-long policy of limiting most couples to only having one child, and this caused a big imbalance. This is why you have a lot of the Asian transgendered, because China's like India. The name of the family is important to them, and the family line name continues. So when you limit it to one child, most families want a boy because the boy's name carries on. And tens of thousands of female Chinese children have been killed because the families wanted the boy to continue the line. And this is what happens. But in 2015, they eased it. Was it for the benefit of the families? You'll see. Not really. But some herald the change as a move forward towards greater reproductive freedom. But the government was only embarking on another grand experiment in population engineering. Indeed. And this time it was urging women, though only the right sort of women, to reproduce for China. The authorities in Beijing seem terrified that plummeting birth rates, an ageing population and a shrinking labour force might undermine the results of years of double-digit growth rates. All about the money, you see. And would subsequently threaten the political legitimacy of the ruling Communist Chinese Party, CCP. So they began allowing most married couples to have 2 children, and they hoped that the new policy would bring 3 million additional births a year through 2020 and add more than 30 million workers to the labour force by 2050. Except there's been no baby boom. Oops. Figures released last month show that the country's birth rate actually fell by 3.5% in 2017 compared to the previous year. So there you go. There's always this theory of certain think tanks that if Africa was westernized, so to speak, or had the lifestyle we had, the birth rates would go up. Actually, they don't. They go down. The Western nations' birth rate has been plummeting for the last 40 years. And this is why we have had in America and also in Britain the influx of people from another country. 2.3 children is required to keep their system going. Not our system, their system. But most Western nations have been averaging 1.1 children per family. So there's 1.2 children missing per family. Well, what happens next is there's not enough money to put into the pensions where they can steal it. That's the gist of it. So if you've got no labour force to roll it over, that's why they brought people in from other countries who have a higher birth rate, like so the Hispanic people, like so the Polish people into Britain, and the Romanians. Nothing to do with, of course it has other agendas, but that's the main one. So unfortunately for China, and their think tank policy has now backfired, and the birth rate has fell by 3.5%, even with allowing for an extra child. So according to official statistics, the number of children born to parents who already had one child did rise slightly in 2017, but the number of first child births dropped. And the reason given, because a critical mass of women appear now to be in no rush to have babies. Well, if you create a poor system where poverty is the main diet, then more and more women who are becoming more educated are deciding, I'm not bringing a child into this world. Why would you? You know, the way it is now. You know, it's frightening in many ways. If we hadn't made so many big moves, that's counteracting it. You wouldn't want to bring children into the world filled with violence and hatred, greed, service to self. You just wouldn't. You know, it's bad. And hopefully we'll have better news. Back to Jared Kushner again. So whilst Mr. Trump was in presidential transition, he was busy helping shape the new administration. But Trump's son-in-law had another pressing concern that's been brought up today, and this is what I've been warning about. He was trying to find a wealthy investor to buy into a Manhattan commercial building owned by his family's company that is facing down a $1.2 billion debt. Oops. And meetings that Kushner had that month were with a Chinese insurance company and also a Russian banker, as well as the company's efforts to get funding from a Qatari source. Mr. Kushner is going to be in the news more than most, I feel. Another one who left, even though I'd never heard of it. Although if you type in her name, she's quite a pretty girl. If you type in her name, it doesn't look like there's only one of them. Look for yourself. Hope Hicks, the White House communications director and one of President Trump's longest serving advisors. Well, she's been there 2 weeks. Everyone else goes in that period, it's also it seems. Anyway, is to step down, according to the administration, and a 29-year-old former model, an ex-Trump organization employee, has been by Mr. Trump's side for a number of years. And she is reported to have told colleagues she felt she had accomplished all she could in the White House. And now she is the fourth person to serve as the White House communications chief. Oh, my. It wasn't like put down long-term prospects of working in the White House these days. White House spokesman Sarah Sanders said it remained unclear when Ms. Hicks would leave the administration, and she said her resignation was not connected to the testimony she gave in the House Intelligence Committee on Tuesday. Or maybe not. Next one in trouble, General McMaster's. That is significant. That's all I'll say for now. Final news item before we go into a music break, and then the intel and a couple of op-ed pieces I would like to cover this week. Another one stepping down. Says it's for health reasons, but I think we know it's different. The US Olympic Committee Chief Executive Scott Blackmun is stating he's resigning for health reasons, but the organisation, I would suggest a lot different. But he has faced criticism following months of sustained criticism in the wake of the sex abuse scandal involving former USA gymnast Dr. Larry Nassar. And in a statement this week, the USOC cited Blackmun's ongoing health issues, for which he has been receiving treatment, and the group also announced new reforms are aimed at protecting its athletes from abuse. Really takes new reforms. Why can't he protect them straight off the bat? Well, I think we all know why. Because they're all part of it. A lot of them. Right. Let's have a musical break and get ready for some intel. Some of it's fairly explosive, I'll tell you that for nothing. Some of it I can't put out for now, but there's enough in this bit. Well, first of all, I'm going to dedicate this next song a sad reminder of what happened 12 months ago this week, when THI and Cosmic Voice, for that matter, lost one of its members, Rodney DeLoach. We didn't forget Rodney, and we won't forget. And I hope you'll all enjoying this song and remembering Rodney DeLoach, and a spare of thoughts for Kathy Smith this week. Hi all, and welcome back. Right, that small THI tribute in remembrance of Rodney DeLoach. We haven't forgotten Rodney, and we won't. And you might just like some of the stuff that's going on in this intel piece, Rodney. This is rather detailed, and you may want to listen closely. Item number one of probably 12, 15, maybe a bit more. First things we're going to go to is the Jesuits and their worship of the serpent race. They reared their ugly head this week and paid a price. And apart from the story we put out about a private group in Asia demanding all the US military hardware, which is still being dealt with and is coming along nicely, I believe, the Jesuits chimed in, and they still think that they own the US military. So a suggestion has gone into the team to tally up the military budget for each year the Jesuits believe they owned the military that was allocated by the government, and send them the bill. Well, if they think they own it, then they owe the American people all the money back that has been allocated out of government funds every single year. What was it this year? 600-700 billion. Just the last 4 years. Nice tidy amount. So maybe they can reimburse the multi-trillions the American people have paid towards the military. Apparently, according to them, we don't know. We'll see how they like that. Item 2, Jesuits again. This was last Friday evening, early Saturday morning. The Jesuits tried to open a gate, one of the stargates, the portals, to bring the serpent race people in and Lucifer. The others being their gods. And this is after the previous attempt was made in December, following the Chinese elders' human chomp fest, sacrifice to the gods. Well, they never came then, and they didn't come on Friday either. The gate was closed, and those people they're calling on, or those beings, will not be coming here anytime soon. Period. Their days here are over. No more interference. 8 of the Jesuits who attempted to open the gate were taken out permanently, and others were dealt with in other ways. And the reason why is they violated the peace treaty. That is a direct violation of the new peace treaty. Many others are in and facing trial over the last 48 hours. And when they were being questioned, they all admitted working for and worshipping the power of Lucifer. This is what the Vatican Church brings to the table. I know that will sit uncomfortably to many of the Catholic people, but that's what you're worshipping, whether you like that idea or you don't. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. There's enough evidence for people to go and see. The altar inside the Vatican, there's a reptilian in there. Big bronze statue. You can't mistake it. It's got a reptile tail. Now, according to the Vatican, it's Jesus rising out of a nuclear ash. Well, according to history, we've only had nuclear weapons in the last 40, 50 years, and I don't recall Jesus being around then. And then go and look at the other worship, where you can see the snake head in the ceiling. It's all there. So, following those removals, our team were ready, and we then faced numerous hacks to the new quantum system, and all of them were observed, and the details of who, when and where has been sent to the relevant people to deal with. So the question is, why were they hacking? Because on Saturday morning they were trying to do the RV again. You know, how many more times are you going to fail before you quit? But the Saturday attempt, there are strong rumours, which I suspect will be confirmed, is some of the RV people themselves got very pissy when the funds were not delivered, and 10 of the people who failed to deliver the payout were shot and killed in Reno. Oops. So the RV then rolled on. It failed again. And like a faulty robot, that repeated failure again and again. So Operation Stupidity rolled out Monday morning. Another RV attempt. And the outcome of that, it failed again. So the government then and other top brass asked Kim and the trust to provide funds for everything that was needed, including the foundation, on Monday afternoon. Now, the bank transfers were made, and then because the system is transparent and we can see all transactions, we all sat back and watched where the funds were going to. And it was all going well until the Cheney, Bush, Obama and Clinton group stepped in and blocked all 72 banks from accepting the funds. Not only that, they then tried to steal some of the funds for a group known as the COMEX group, which is linked to Bush and the Chicago crew. You thought that was interesting? You ain't heard nothing yet. This then set off a chain of events, as for the first time all groups, be it politicians, agencies, banks and markets, actually saw the funds. So now they all know without any doubt the funds exist, and the man at World Holding Trust and the trustee Kim was telling the truth all along. So all those who doubted can now go and kiss my ass big time. I'm sorry. It's all been proven. It's all in your face. There is no doubts, ifs, what, when, where and why. It was all there. And that includes the internet trolls. Then the fun and games started. War broke out, and I mean literally war broke out between the factions, the government people for change and those stuck in the old ways. The agencies were fighting, the Pentagon are fighting, and the military are fighting. All of them. There is absolute bedlam going on. On Monday night, following the transfer of the funds, which were then blocked, this is why I get a bit pissy. Military guys showed up in a further attempt to snatch and grab Kim to prevent her and the team going forward with the trust. Well, that failed as well. Once again, it highlights the dangers people face whilst doing this stuff. And like I said, this is what gets my back up when people moan, when is it happening? Or he or she is BS, when they really don't know jack shit of what is really going on. This show does. We've proven it time and time and time again. How would you like to sit in your home and have military guys try and snatch you out of your home? This is what happens when you try to help and save people in this world. And you get people moaning on the page that the post is too cryptic. Really? People are getting killed here for your freedom. That's what's going on. And we could do without the internet trolls who are sent to distract or unload on us of how self-important they are. This war's real. You know, if you're that important, why haven't you done anything? All these people on the internet telling us all the this, that and the other. If you're that important, why haven't you done anything? But Anna von Reitz did a rather good piece on Tuesday supporting the facts and hammered into the Cheney group. We are still fairly sure that the main Cheney was taken out. but the group behind him still wields power and thuggery. Yes, you, Blackwater. Although, as Anna's piece pointed out, that power now is paper thin. And I mean paper thin. And largely it's only the people's fear that holds that alleged power in place. The minions that support them are propping up a paper thin power structure that's collapsing around their ears and ankles. Tuesday evening brought more attacks on the team, and more goons lost their lives. Failed again. Yesterday, another attempt was launched, and a release of the funds again, and all were in attendance, including the US Treasury, the government, the military, the agencies, the Pentagon, many heads of state of various countries were all there watching. Like I said, they all now know who the real trustee is, and it's not Rothschilds or Chinese elders. It's Kim, as we've said all along. So they're all there, you name it, all watching the funds yet again being delivered to the various banks. And then whilst live, the clowns stepped in, because once it goes out the new system, it goes into the old system which they control, and cancelled all American bank transactions until further notice. Oh boy, they don't like it, do they? And this was too much horror of all the officials who were watching. And you can gauge their reaction to it. All have been shown again now who did what they did, where they operate from, and where their machines are. Nobody's under any illusions anymore, and the time for action and actions to fully unfold took place. And boy, did it take place. The anger at the order, or the clowns as I call them, is now getting rather ugly. People in the top end of business and banking are in sheer panic mode at the moment. There is literally no funds left. We did warn March would be the key. Many of them have stepped down. Many of them are now helping. Like I said, that's the way it should be. And they're terrified because their businesses and their banks are about to fall into the abyss. And some of us will go, well, great. Except that means everybody's job goes with it. And the banks, all your accounts just vanish. So this has to be prevented. So this is to a message, a direct message to the people who follow Cheney, Obama, and the Clinton group. We now know, you've all realised, that you've been duped on a massive scale. We did warn you. And we also know that it's not sitting too well with you. Well, you now have a choice, a real choice. Do you want to help your country and humanity without the fun and games of the order, without the threats of the order? and come and move forward with the rest of us, then we're asking you to reach out to us. You know where we are. We will listen. Your choice. I wouldn't wait too long, because those people will take you out. You're expendable like everybody else. So all this fun and games took place between the 24th and the 28th of February, and yet QAnon did 0 posts in that time. Make of that what you will. There is so much swamp draining now that our team is struggling to keep up with the actions that have been taken and are about to be taken. There's no mucking about anymore. There's no going back anymore. It's full-on war. Hopefully it won't spill into the public arena, but this has to be done. We've got no real option, and violence will be used if need be. We hope it wouldn't lead to that, but some people, that's all they understand. That's all they know. The SSP, or to give them their real title, SS small p, I can now report have been shut down. Oops. Finito. They have had all their avenues to assistance, support, and more importantly, the access points on this planet closed off to them permanently. No one will allow them access anymore, including their former entity allies, into the mountainous regions which are the access points. You see, some mountains move and have openings. You won't see it, but they do. And as a side note, Mr. SSP man, I see Corey's latest, he's talking about aquatics. It's funny that he hasn't mentioned it before. I wonder where he heard that from. It's unbelievable, it really is. So you can come to this show and get first-hand knowledge for free, or you can get data mined second-hand news, but please pay a subscription for. Your choice. First-hand free, data mined second-hand news, you pay for it. You wonder how that all works. And more importantly, why people pay for it. I think we'll have a music break. There's a lot more. That's the intel for now. It's coming in fast and furious. We can't keep up with what's going on. But to recap, no one's under any illusions anymore. And many are not following the order and the plans anymore. What they choose to do with their paymasters, not my choice. I wasn't the one that was duped by them. But given them, some of them have a tendency for violence, I wouldn't like to be a part of that group. There's a lot of countries all around the world who are in desperate straits. In fact, all countries are in desperate straits. that were waiting on their funds that were being delivered on Monday and then again on Wednesday. And these idiots decided to block the rest of the world. Like I said, wouldn't like to be in their shoes, because the world now knows we ain't backing down. So Sadiq Kabal, have a nice day. Hi all and welcome back. Brief recap to the person that privately asked me the question, are they being dismantled? The answer is they all are, not just them. There's no going back now. It's going to be a long process, but there's always a tipping point, a fulcrum if you like, where the balance doesn't know which way to go. And we've been kind of teetering on that over the last few months. Of course, we were at the bottom of the fulcrum at 1.1%. And then we climbed up. And suddenly the fulcrum started to wobble. It's sliding the other way rather fast now. I said back in December, remember this day, because things will never be the same. You've seen what's unfolded in the last 3 months. Firings everywhere. Resignations, you name it. And eventually we all want it to filter towards the people. But in essence it already has. There's enough mainstream media news that covers, even in the first hour, some of the things that are going on that used to be intel. Those type of things. The hidden reasons why they're going. But no, there's just no one under any illusions. Will the clowns carry on doing Operation Stupidity? Probably. They're just bots. They know no different. Some of it's fear, because they're frightened if they lose control that they're going to get lynched. Well, I think you may find you may get lynched by your own people now. You went that far. Like I said before the music break, I wouldn't like to be in your shoes. You've sold this country out and its people. Big time. The Cheneys, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, Jarretts, McCains. You know, said back in August, the consequences of actions would start. I think we can all see it already has. The gods are not coming back for them anymore. They're on their own. And on their own, they're not clever enough to continue the system. This was a surprise to some. It wasn't to me. Because these people, all of them, have all dealt with the top order. Marduk, Anu, Enki, Enlil. They're the ones that had the brains backed by the Mantids. They're the ones that ran the trustee. They're the ones that ran the old financial system, whether it was called Babylon or Hercules or numbers of other fake god names. and he didn't pass on the knowledge. So all the people below them were all followers. None of them were leaders. They looked like they were leaders, but they were all following orders. And people who follow orders all their lives do not become leaders overnight. And I remember having a discussion with Shane, and he felt that things were kind of dire. And I understand that. And he said that there will be a trimming of the fat of the cabal because it's become too top heavy, they can't afford it, and they don't feel they need them anymore. And I said, no. I said, because the ones that are left are basically followers, Shane. They won't know how to lead, and they'll end up fighting each other to be the leader. And that's exactly what's taken place. Of course, at the other end, whilst they were all busy fighting each other, we pushed on. People like Kim, myself, and many, many thousands of other people around the world pushed on, unhindered largely, made peace treaties, removed certain entities from around the world and below our feet and from the skies. Technology removed that interfered, and gradually the domain of power and control started dwindling. But over the last 3 or 4 years, it's increased rapidly. Like I said last year, the unravelling, and boy did it unravel. And this year was the unveiling. And what we're seeing is a rather nasty and ugly swamp. That government officials around the world were largely ignorant of. They have no idea. Because they followed orders. They didn't lead. And now, even their own mercenaries and people who did all the dirty work, while they hide in their mansions and underground bunkers, even them are turning on them now. And that's like the classic series, The 100, where are all the good guys? There are none. You have to create them. And create is what we've done. You know, in essence, you have to... The system is so vast, it's barely believable. And it's even less believable that it could be taken down. It's that complex. But it has. It was all it took with a few people to believe. You believe in anything, you can achieve anything. Like what the Oracle said. Neo's just got to believe. And it will happen. Well, many people believed. You can't possibly just take them all down. They've got all the resources, they've got all the justice system, the police and everything. But it's collapsing around them. Police are being exposed on mainstream media now for hiding outside while allegedly children were getting shot. It's not looking good for them, is it? The system, the justice people. They're getting fired. The Vatican is being exposed on a daily basis. They were a big part of it. The banks being exposed, the child abuse is being exposed, the child trafficking is being exposed, the links to the mafia is being exposed, the links to them hunting down prominent teachers in the past was being exposed. once the world finds out what we who listen to this show already know of who they're worshipping out of the Catholic Church, they're doomed. And more people are finding out. Yes, they may take the desperation measure of shutting down blogs and Facebook pages and deleting comments and removing YouTube. All that will do is make more people interested. It used to have an effect in their favour. What they're realising now is nothing that they do works in their favour anymore. And I kept telling you all that. All their big plans will fail. So, deleting comments and shutting down videos is backfiring, because people then who are suddenly, there's a vast volume over the last 2 or 3 false flags, particularly the Vegas one and the 2 Florida ones. More of the people not involved in the alternative media started seeing through the illusion that the official narrative didn't stack up. And once you start looking at that, you're down the rabbit hole that we've all been down. Well, they did a drill on 9/11 as well, and it happened. They did a drill in London, 7/7, and it happened. Sandy Hook, Barcelona, Madrid, Paris. Once people start looking and questioning, those people are on a path to the rabbit hole we've all buried ourselves into. And that's what's happening. And deleting and blocking will only increase that interest. Well, why are they doing that? Well, I saw that hog was listening in his earpiece, so someone was telling him what to say. It's game over. In essence, anyway. How it all plays out, how long it takes, is all yet to be decided. But it's moving at such a rapid pace now. Like I said earlier, the swamp draining and people being removed or taken out. Can't keep up with it. Good stuff. Said March would be interesting. And it's only the 1st. One of the things I need to bring up is about Mr. Trump in particular, and he's part of it. But there's a lot of ongoing drama and debate of he said, she said, American politics. It's almost playground stuff. And whilst we're aware of the threats and the coercion within the political circles, which is heavier than people realise, but it doesn't really bode well for the future if this nonsense of once the swamp has been cleaned, if they're going to continue to argue over every minute detail because their party is better than the other party. Now, of course, the advent and implementation of sovereignty could well change all that overnight, because really we should have a new election. People may say, given Trump's played a role, that he should carry on. I think most people will go along with that. Now, Trump can set the stage for a better future. He really can. But people also have to realise he's not too clean either. That will all come out as the swamp starts swilling a little bit faster, they're going to throw all kinds at Trump. Now, I'm personally aware of a number of incidents involving Trump. And if I'm aware, I'm sure they are. But with the various allegations on various fields, of course, obviously now his business dealings are under heavy scrutiny. But as we all know, or should do, the reality is you don't get to Trump's business standing by being fair, legal, or honourable. It's the way the game is set up. It's a sad fact, but it's also a true one. And this is why I felt for the next president we need someone who's not got military links. So it becomes all about war. They don't have lawyer links where it comes about legal bullshit. And they don't come from the consumer, big business, corporate links as well, where there's all, you know, the backhanded skullduggery that's gone on of lobbyists. All of them have been involved in those practices at the top level. And many of them have been involved in acts and deeds that would not sit well with an informed and educated public. We have to say that. Trump has business dealings with Russia, they cry. You know, really. Have we all missed something, or is there a global ban on speaking to, dealing with, or trading with Russia and all of its people? You can't be in the level of high business that Trump is in and not be involved with certain or all countries. It's he's got a hotel chain for the start. Does he ban all Russians or anyone connected to Russia from staying in the hotel in case someone says, oh, there was a Russian stayed in his hotel one day last week. He must have been colluding. I mean, how ridiculous does it get? You know, and judging by the media, aka the portal people, you would think it's only Republicans who liaise with Russians. Have they forgotten? Because we all know too well the Democratic Party and their colluding news outlet, CNN, as in Clinton News Network, are riddled with real damaging collusions with Russia. And yeah, with the portal people, under the carpet it's brushed and one-sided information is relayed. But one-sided information is not news. It's propaganda. And this is why I would like to see Trump, if there is a new election, go as an independent. Just ditch the Republicans, ditch the Democrats. They've never done anything for the benefits of the people, ever. Why do we need it? We don't. It's just divide and conquer and rivalry and let's play games that one side is better than the other. It's not. You know, it's fairly simple. We just need a person who's interested in running the country for and by the people. Why do you need to be called a Democrat or a Republican or a Liberal or a left or a right and all that other nonsense? Labels and boxes. Why can't you just be a person doing a job for the benefit of the country and its people? Then you vote on issues based on what's beneficial for the people, not beneficial to the cronies in the party. Then you might get things done quicker. But those that have served up the propaganda and fear porn, portrayed false events as real, and laid it on thick to a largely unaware people, which, let's not forget, has caused untold trauma, fear and guilt. In my opinion, should be tried for treason and face the penalty that it will carry. Yes, you, Portal people, ACCA Media. Treason. But many people may be under the illusion that media usage by the agencies is only lasted the last few decades. You'd be surprised to know, and think again, it was CBS back in 1923 when the agencies first started providing scripts. They've been doing this stuff a long, long time. But most that listen to this show, your whole lifetime. And in my opinion, they should all face the consequences over a long time as well. Another event, false event that took place this week in Georgia. You see, it's all a script in the other world, not in ours, their world. When they put up a call for all teachers should be armed, and that will prevent some events taking place. Unless the teacher has the same backbone as the cops in the Florida event. But then what happens? 48 hours later, right on script, some pseudo teacher goes nutty in an empty classroom firing off a gun. It's like a poorly made B movie, isn't it? You know, more people are seeing through it. And that's what they don't like. Just keep seeing through it. Shall we have a music break? I've got one more piece I should do, and then I really have to get into some questions. Yeah, we'll just have one song, and then I want to mention another anniversary in this next op-ed piece. What should we play? Yep, I won't back down. No, we won't until we finish it all off, and that's getting rather closer by the hour now. Right, final op-ed piece before we get into some questions. I watched something the other night as a kind of a reminder, and boy does time fly. And we live kind of in a mad world of deleting accounts, be it Facebook, blogs, YouTube. Richie Allen, Natural News and Jeremy Corsi were the latest to come a crop at the hands of the fascists. But there's a lot of game playing going on. Certain other accounts are being shut down to make it look like something that it's not. Yes, you, Mr. Sather. Your time and those other blue chicken clowns are short. They're going to find out the lies you've been spinning. A world where cops who are paid to protect but don't, whether told to stand down or not, is irrelevant. What happened to heart instinct? What happened to the right thing, regardless of rules, regulations, statutes, or some order? There are times in life when all that goes out of the window and you have to do what is right. Now, this week is the anniversary, 27th anniversary of Rodney King. A major story of actions of the cops has again been called into question this week. And unlike what happened to Rodney, where a number of cop thugs beat him senseless while on the ground and unable to defend himself, 4 cops were faced with someone who, it is alleged, wasn't defenceless and was armed and was shooting at children, according to the official narrative anyway. And yet those 4 stayed outside. One of those 4 got offered up as the sacrificial lamb to the baying media, but all 4 should be shamed to me. I'm sorry, but being told to stand down is bullshit. You do the right thing. Everything else is a cowardly cop-out, pardon the pun. It's all fine if you're a cop when in a group kicking, punching, shooting and tasering people on the floor. But when faced with real actions of people who can fight back, suddenly the big tough guy shits his pants and does a runner. And this is exactly like what happened in LA 27 years ago. The police chief pulled all the cops out of harm's way after the frankly ridiculous but rather predictable, given America's darkest shame and past in the area of race, and the 4 thugs in LA were acquitted, citing necessary force. Yeah, right. The world didn't think so. And so following the removal of all the cops in LA, carnage, violence and death ensued. That event was not the first or the last, as people hopelessly brainwashed all played the cabal game of divide and conquer en masse. The sight of seeing anti-black demonstrations around that time, with women and children spewing hatred towards people they've never even spoken to, lives long in the memory for many around the world. Men and testosterone can take over and go all bullish and acting tough in front of other fellows to make sure they're not seen as weak. Reality is they were all weak to begin with, despite the posturing. But women and children, I can't get my head around that. Shouting, even on the videos, "Go home, nigger." I mean, really, that is and was shameful. What happened after the cops pulled out in LA then revealed the ugly side of the black community as well. Burning, looting, dragging any white person out of their vehicles and beating them to death or near to. I mean, again, what type of behaviour was that? No doubt the cabal were all sitting there laughing their heads off. It's exactly what they wanted. Divide and conquer. They then set fire to all the Korean businesses, which is racism in itself, and sadly proves racism is alive in all cultures, not just whites. I can understand the frustration of the blacks. I could even understand it, although not necessarily agree with it, if they'd started dragging cops out of the cars and beating them to death. As at least then it would be targeting the same group who had started it all. But sadly no, they picked on the innocent, the wrong ones. Why do we do that? And it's yet again the people of all colours missed the elephant in the room as to who was the real cause of that and many other issues. But let's ignore the elephant and pick on the innocent ones and extract revenge on them, as they're the easy option to face. That policy by the people has not worked out very well for us, has it? Ignore the problem and the problem gets bigger. We did, and it did. But the question remains, how did so many people go along with the idea of separate toilets, separate bars, cafes, schools, buses for so long, and not think that was wrong. All of it expertly packaged by government think tanks and agencies, and amply supported by the democratic minders, or better known as the KKK, of which most cops and justice system were members. Go figure. But they had a plan, and the people played the game. Why did we do that? This way of thinking had to stop, and has to stop, if we are to make it a better world for all. And I mean all. And the same applies to the immigrants issue here, blaming them for all the ills, the crime and the guns and etc., etc., and the lack of jobs. And the same issues that caused the Rodney King incident still prevails, hiding in the background like a malware or a rootkit in the computer. Immigrants are people. Let us not forget that. Just because they're not from America doesn't make them a second or third class people. Unless you think I'm second or third class as well. So if a situation ever arises in this country, and we may well be not that far from it, or of it, remember, people, you stick together and support each other. It's all you've got. Because if the shit does hit the fan, and if history is anything to go by, the cops will do a runner or hide. So don't rely on them to protect you. All you'll have left is to protect each other. We're all in the same boat. The giant arc of Earth, striving for a brighter future for us all. This is why we're doing it. This is why we have this show. This is why Kim's the trustee. We're all striving for a better future without the psychopathic think tank goons that have ran this world for thousands of years, that creates haves and have-nots, deliberately creates issues between the people of colour, no matter what colour you are. And I'll remind people, we go back to last year, when the people of Louisiana were flooded out. They realised FEMA wasn't coming, and even if they did, they wouldn't do anything. They realised the Red Cross is not there to help anybody by themselves. So what did they do? They all got together. Nobody cared what colour they were, or what religion they were, or what sexuality they were. Why does it take a moment of crisis to do that? And why can't we just do it naturally? Because going forward, if we don't learn to get on, we will fail. And all of this has been for nothing. People really need to quit the violence, no matter what colour you are. Violence never solved anything in life. It just begets more violence. We've seen far too much violence on this planet, and bloodshed on this planet has a bigger impact than people ever realise. A lot of people will want certain cabal blood spilt everywhere for people to see, for the crimes they've committed, and I do get that to a point. But let's not follow their path with their reptilian DNA, special bloodline and all that bollocks. Let's create our own path. So we have to think and act different. I keep saying it because that's important. If we think the same way, we'll just bludgeon them to death. More violence, more anger, more shame, more guilt. Thinking and act different means we do things in a different way. Some people will get taken out regardless, because they will fight to the death, and they will face that consequence. And this is largely why most of this swamp cleaning has been done privately, where nobody sees and very few know. Because if it goes out publicly, we all know an awful lot of people will turn into vigilantes. And vigilantes never find out if they're going after the real one. Doesn't matter. That one looks like him or her. Let's take them out. Ask questions later. No. We have to be think and act in a better way. We have to be better than them. I think we are better than them, and I think we'll show it as well. But we're going to need nerves of steel over the next days, weeks and months, because a lot will be unveiled. It will unhinge some people. It's all right talking about it, and I tell you this happened and that happened. But there's still always a shock element when it comes out in their world. Because we've partly been conditioned into believing what the media tells us rather than our own people. That's part of why it is expected to take 40 years to clean everything up. That doesn't mean to say we all have to sit around for 40 years, because trust me, there's a lot of cleaning up to do. A lot of changes have to be implemented on all levels. It's like a snowball effect. You introduce one thing, it affects everything around it. And everything is kind of interconnected. People say, well, we want the health machines. Well, what if suddenly within a year there's no thousands of nurses' jobs are gone? How are you going to replace them? All these things have to be thought through, and many of them have. Because planning has been ongoing with this over a long period of time, but it's all been very quiet. Some bits here and there have come out, but most of it, the public, including the alternative media, are oblivious to it. That's the way it had to be. Can't all be white hat groups, and white hat with inverted commas, I have to say, telling you everything that's going on, and next week we're going to arrest this one, and next week we're going to arrest that one. it wasn't realistic. Sounded nice, and we all got excited at certain times. But then you only have to take a step back and look at it for what it was. It's just hopium. And much of the alternative media has been about hopium. The list I put out last week of all the things that never arrived and we're all still waiting for. Well, but from what is now relatively a few clowns, this week would have been momentous. And something for the first time ever on the alternative media would have been delivered. I'm not too sure when the next attempt will be made. It may get to a point of daily now. We're in March. The money's run out. And the RV people's patience has run out with their own. And the minions supporting the order and the power system, patience has run out also. So the very ones that were blocking it may suddenly very quickly turn around and go, can we have that, please? We'll come and help. Well, there will be conditions. Rest assured, there will be conditions. Right, let's get into some Q&A. In our last interview with you, Miss Manor and Kim mentioned a war between two tribes, with one side calling in the Draco for support. Is that how the Draco ended up with the trust? And do you know any history of the two tribes that are at war? And who are the descendants of the original 13 tribes? That's nothing to do with that type of tribal. That was another injection of Anunnaki. So the Draco were brought in because this planet was in a total mess. What was once fertile land was being turned into desert overnight. Vast swathes of it, due to the weaponry being used in the war, that had nothing to do with the humans on the planet, and everything to do with off-world entities fleeing here, the Atlantans. And we didn't have the technology and asked for help. Understandable, but it was, the elders did warn not to go with them, but the people wanted to go, and the elders stepped back, and you see what happened. So the Draco then took over running the planet, and a trust was set up. I don't know how far the trust goes back. It's many thousands of years. But they did run it largely by the guy known as M, up until recently. Obviously in 2012 that contract ended, and the Rothschilds thought they would step in, and some of the factions thought they would step in, and they thought wrong. Does it make any difference in terms of who the trust belongs to? Yes, it does. Because if it wasn't taken over by Kim and the team, they would have started Agenda 21 and 30 with that funds. They were going to wipe us out. They wanted, as one of the parents said, Cassandra, they were going for the robotic technology world, which meant people were not needed. Useless eaters, or the greedy little piglets. That's the way it was going. Except as when they needed the funds for the final push on them began. 2007, they started losing access to funds at a rapid rate, and here we are, 2018, and now they've pretty much, in real terms, got nothing left. So yes, it makes a vast difference in terms of who is the signature of the trust. With regards to the question, can the trust be used as collateral asset by the people? It was meant for so that people can issue private bills of exchange. I haven't had the time to look into that. It's not a question I can answer, but I will post that question and see if I can get an answer back. I'll either post it on MeWe or in the next show. Apologies for that. I have to ask, what happens if the USA Inc. doesn't recognise this, and if no one enforces this, arrests, etc., then what will change, or what might be your opinion on this? I think we can all see now that things are changing. We still need the public announcements as such, even though it's already been done and already taken place. But largely I do get that, and people want to see it on a more outer than on a public view. But what if Trump comes on an alternative media show and announces it all on there? Would people still believe it? Doesn't matter where it gets announced. The point is, it does get announced. I can't think of anything more ironic and more fitting than Trump coming on an alternative media show, whoever it may be, and announcing American sovereignty. Because let's be honest, it's the rabbit hole seekers that have pushed this. We knew something was not right. That's why we're all involved in and listening to this show. And I think we should be recognised for it. We've suffered a lot, and I think we deserve a little bit of credit given back. Because rest assured, half of them who sit in those corridors of power know very little. They have this tiny bit of piece of the puzzle, and the one in the next room has another bit and another bit. But if none of them speak to each other or meet each other, they're never going to put the pictures together. And that's what's gone on every level. Trump's mentioned sovereignty far too many times now for it to not be significant. So, as I understand it, enforcement is now in place. What part of the unholy triangle, Vatican City, London City and DC, do you predict will go down last? Well, DC's already gone down. So it's a kind of take your pick. I would say Vatican will possibly be the last one, but they've been hit badly this week. Many of their top people have paid a price. London is kind of wavering in many ways. I referred to them last week about the GCHQ and speaking with the people in the House of Lords who have traditionally been stuck in the mud. Rothschilds. People are opening up now, and They knew all along something was not right over the last 12, 18 months. Maybe some of them were frightened. But they've all seen it now. And they also know we know what they've been up to. All of them. And if you don't think, maybe one day someone will knock on your door with a small fulcrum file of what you've been up to. And you want to carry on playing clowns. Some of you already had your fulcrum files. Oops. Speaking of the Vatican and all the secrets, ancient artifacts from Atlantis, etc., and all the stuff they got from the false flag burning of the Library of Alexandria, what do you think the cabal thinking when it comes to all of that? Not all the library was burnt. All of it, from what I gather, is stored elsewhere. You see, it's not just the cabal that can mess with time. Some can go back and record. Think about that. Maybe some of the ancient artifacts aren't the real ones. And no, they won't be smuggling out. They can't smuggle anything out anymore because there's too many eyes and too many ears. On Sunday's OYM show, you mentioned the New Earth was in another universe. Why is it in another universe? Because that's in a better space and time for the higher frequencies. A lot of this universe has been messed with badly. The fractal virus and the fun and games of removing the G matter. Maybe without extensive healing throughout the universe. It would be better to start off in a new space that's not riddled with all kinds of disease, that contains the G matter, which means no inorganic. No more fun and games without the fractal virus. And aren't there many Earths in different dimensions? Why aren't we going to one of those instead? Because some of them went down. I'm not saying any more than that. I was surprised to hear Miss Manners say that we should keep paying taxes and registration. Question, if all things registered are owned by the Crown and our taxation goes to the Crown, aren't we still just fulfilling corrupt coffers? I'm glad this question's come up, because there's a lot of people going to get into trouble and have got into trouble. Heather Giraffe is facing 15, 20 years, and there's a number of others who got jail because suddenly they thought they were legal experts overnight. We're still in their system, so we still have to pay their taxes. Once it gets changed, and hopefully a new system is then implemented, fine. I would carry on as it is, because the last thing you want is to be arrested at the time of change. It's just stupid. So carry on paying the taxes as the system is, and hopefully we'll get an announcement sometime this year of hopefully that all these crown taxes should end. I can't guarantee it will. But if people start finding out the truth, the people will demand it themselves. And they'll have to do something. And there's a lot of people claiming now they're sovereign and claiming straw man. You're going to get jailed stating that stuff. It's like a comment, I can't remember the person, says, I heard the term sovereignty many times. It's a very difficult situation. If an enforcer realises you believe you are sovereign, expect many enforcer backups to show up. One can never mention such a word in court, rest assured. I say this from experience as an observer in the court. Yes, because you're still in their system. We have to wait until it changes. And no one on the internet spouting legal lists, and you've got your straw man, and you've got your sovereignty, and you don't have to pay this bill, and you don't have to register this licence, and you don't need a licence for a bank. Yes, Miss Von Wrights, you carry on doing that and you'll end up in jail. Technically, many of those things are correct. Maybe all of them are. But the system is still the old way until it completely changes. And I can't promise when that will be. I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. So please pay your taxes, go and get your license, and quit with the rubbing sovereignty in the face until we get a full-on public disclosure. The last thing I want to see is people going to jail because some clown on the internet thinks they know better than the system. The system's collapsing, but it hasn't collapsed yet. I would love to know some of the history and articles that have been written regarding the concept of kingdom and sovereignty of both nations and peoples living in peace. Well, I'm not too sure whether going on the logistics of that question. Is there a history to do with sovereignty and the kingdom yet? We covered that in the first Kingdom of Manor show. But Kingdom of Manor was announced last year, and America was announced this year. So that's not really history as such, but that all will be made available when the time is right and everything is settled down. I imagine there'll be a vast quantity of history and articles released to the public. Not just the Vatican. There's archives that dwarf the Vatican. So that's something to look forward to in the future. Again, I'm not giving timelines on it. I have a proposal to start a free thinking school. Where would I submit this proposal for Manor funds? Well, there's a number of proposals have already gone in to the peoplesclub.org. I haven't got the time to respond to all of them. Obviously, the funds are not there yet. We have been helping people with small amounts of funds that are in the accounts. That's been collected by the canned donations given by the members. But it doesn't stop you if you want to put in a proposal, but just don't be pestering Michael or myself to answer it. It will stay on file. All proposals are still on file, and when the funds are released, then all those proposals will be looked at, and we'll have a vote on whether to proceed with that. It doesn't have to be a detailed marketing and strategy and all that that stuff. What you'd like to do, a few minor outlines, and if you can, a costing. Obviously, early on, I would think the ones that are in the low figures will be signed off very, very quickly so we can get funds out. And then the bigger projects we have to take a more detailed look at. So the proposal will be a draft outline. We don't need a 50-page letter. If we then go forward with it, then we want a more detailed proposal. We will ask for a more detailed proposal once the funds have arrived. If the cabal are losing control, why are they still pushing gun control agenda? Because it's the last throw of the dice. They think if they take all the guns off the people, they can roll through with the mercenaries. If the people have no guns, in America, the mercenaries would have gone through state by state by now. So a lot of it now is also distraction to keep people away from what's really going on, which is utter carnage. Is there a method to remove Morgellons from your body? I believe, I'm not too sure, vinegar has an effect because it's acidic and can burn that particular entity out. I don't know the full details. Maybe one of the members will know. I'm not too proficient on health, the health field. Did the Titans terraform Earth? No. What are your thoughts on urine therapy? I covered that a few weeks back. Need to get through a couple of these quick now. I can't reconcile Benjamin Fulford's info with yours. Could you please connect the dots for me? Certainly. You won't. Because one is part of a faction-driven narrative, and the other one is only interested in the benefit of the people. So repeat question. Are you familiar with the work The Human Plan Soul into Body Integration by Chris Thomas? Not particularly, no. He has the ability to read the Akashic records. I would ask which one. There are many, including your own. I'm a bit dubious about this Akashic record reading, I have to say. A lot of the bits I did read about Chris Thomas, a lot of it rang true, but there was chunks of it that didn't. So I took out what I needed and left the other bits. And if something comes up that triggers that memory, then I'll look at it again. But if it doesn't, then I stay away. But he did have a lot of stuff that made a lot of sense. I had a dream in 2009, just before the medical mafia pumped me with chemo poison, that I was being held down by 4 unknown beings, whilst the 5th one breathed what they referred to as the Holy Spirit into my body. I wouldn't call it that. The beings were very gentle and told me not to be afraid and everything would be fine, but I needed this. I could literally feel it enter and running through my entire body. It was too real to brush aside. I hit the internet and started researching, and that's how I found Chris Thomas's work. Did something happen in 2009 on a spiritual level with humanity as a whole? Yes, around that time more and more people started to awaken. It may have been the change of frequencies. It may have been the arrival of certain technology that pushed it along. but it may have just been the right time. It triggered a whole heap of people around 2008 and 2009 through 2011, and then there was the next batch was 2015 onwards. It's just gone through the roof over the last 3 years. So I can't tell you whether those 5 beings were good or not, but I'm not too comfortable with the term the Holy Spirit being injected into your body. That smacks to me of a infestation, which hopefully is now gone. I'd be interested to find out how you feel and have felt. But this is how they take over vessels. You know, people think, oh, it's great, and most ETs, and they say a few nice words and look like angels and everything's hunky-dory. That's the not allowing for your own personal knowledge of whether they are what you see, because certain entities have the technology to project into your psyche of what you think you're seeing, when in reality it's something completely different. Like the Sasquatch, there are people who go in the woods who are standing within 6 foot of a Sasquatch and will see a tree, because they can tune into the frequencies of your brain and make you see a tree when they're standing in front of you. I want to ask you where you get all of your knowledge of certain things. Could you recommend any books or sites to find the truth? Not particularly. There's many things that people I've had many of my own experiences, which has increased rapidly over the last 5 or 6 years, where the knowledge comes to me rather than me searching for it. I've gone through the gamut in the 90s and up to 2010, 2011, where I've read pretty much everyone's material, and some of it I agreed with and some of it I didn't, and then there's parts that I found out that I originally agreed with and now don't, and it's all part of the learning curve that we've all been on. I just have an ability to retain perhaps more than other people. And then, because I tend to come at things from an overview aspect, you see a lot more than others when you're not immersed in the knowledge, because you can get lost in it. You have to, at times, take a step back and go, well, what have I learned with that chapter? If you're reading a book, what have I learned from that? Does that tally up with what you knew before you read that chapter? What tallies, what doesn't? So you have to assess as you're going along. Sadly now, because of the way things have increased, the chance to do that is now gone, because everything's coming at such a pace now. There's no real time to step back. You know, I just happen to have a lot of knowledge on a lot of things, and I get told things a lot more than other people do, which then, some of which is relayed on the shows, but not all. I have been on my journey since 1987, when my husband was diagnosed with leukemia, and I wanted to find out why this happened to him. At this point, I feel I am well into what is a lot of truth. Good. Yeah. Everyone has different trigger events that puts them into this field, so to speak. That's just, unfortunately, a rather sad one. But leukemia is a cancer which comes from the lower astral. That's what happens when you open the field. Some of it your own fault through excessive drink or drugs, and some of it through injuries, which can be deliberate or not. Depends on the circumstance and the person involved. If MI5 and MI6 are Rothschilds connected, what chance have you got of sovereignty in Britain? Well, a better chance as of last week than it was the week before or the month before. They're not going to have much place to hide anymore. Because the ones that have now decided, we've had enough of your nonsense, you're not doing this and you're not doing that, you've promised this and you promised that, and then you all find out they've all been promised the same thing. Those people are not happy anymore and are not prepared to play their game. Volumes of them. Now, this week, vast volumes of people all over the world have seen the truth for what it is. They're not going to play the game anymore. And the ones, like I said to Shane, the ones that will be left are the complete and utter psychopaths who are never going to step down. But don't expect many people to follow them either. And what will be left is a small core of psychopaths with no control, no power, and no wealth. And eventually, unless we the people replicate that same system, the end of that control will be gone. They still retain a small element of power, but like I said in the intel, most of that power is an illusion that's been created by the minions that support these goons out of fear. Because once you step out of fear, you'll see it for what it is. It's an illusion. The Rothschilds have been telling you, and the Chinese elders have been telling you, you're getting your RV for the last 25 years. Didn't happen, did it? I think you now realise, most of you anyway, it's never going to happen. Never meant to. They're just bad liars. And they've used you all as pawns to drive their empire. Including the top brass in the MI5, including the top brass in MI6, including the top brass in the Pentagon and Langley and the FBI. You've all been pawns. Hope you like lemons. Is there an expectation when the new Wi-Fi will start to roll out? Is it in any stage of development? The answer to that is no, and can't comment. Oh my word. This is the second question. These shows go on long enough. With so much BS about the history of humanity, can you give us a brief synopsis of our true history from your perspective? Good and valid question, I might add. Well, I would need a whole show to do that. And I have covered it extensively in other shows. And I would recommend you go on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org and listen to the Future of Humanity show, the September 15, 2015 show with Shane, the November the 8th, 2015 show, Read the Factions, and the Humanity Unplugged 1 and 2. Covers various aspects of the history of humanity. And like I said earlier, anyone new to this show would be well served listening to those must-listen shows on Think Different. and then you'll get a better understanding of some of the more deeper aspects that we talk about in the general shows. What is the latest info on the ratio of organic souls and synths? It hasn't changed to my knowledge. You mentioned in a recent show that you heard from folks that the energies in Russia are said to be fantastic. Could you specify anything more about this? It got me thinking about the Edgar Cayce quote about out of Russia will come the hope of the world. Russia is more like a continent than a country, and most of it is unpopulated. Any particular areas where these energies are most felt are the more northern areas, although there is a region around Moscow that has a very different field around it. I don't really want to say too much more on that. The Pope has forgiven 4,444 pedophiles in Australia. Does this mean that they are forgiven and that more cannot be arrested? I haven't looked too much into that. Yes, there's been a lot of that going on. I'm not too sure they're in a position to forgive anyone. I don't think the people, when they find out the truth, are going to be too forgiving of them, actually. Regarding collection agencies, how soon we'll be able to get them off our backs? Again, that probably applies to the same as the other stuff about sovereignty and when this is going to happen, when is that going to happen. It will all unfold. I'm not giving times and raising hopium. Things are happening. I think that's become more than clear now. But you have to act as though you're still in the same system as technically we are until the official change is made. With regards to collection agencies, they don't hold or didn't deliver the debt. And so, from what I understand, they have no clout to order you to pay. So you ask them, please send me the invoice or the official transaction that your company lent me the money, and just stall it out. Because obviously they can't produce that. So if you... It's like someone saying around to you, you lent $50 off person A, and then person C comes along and goes, you owe me the $50. Would you give me? No. I give it to person B from person A, not A and C. So you ask them, please show the proof where you lent me money so that I have to pay you back. And then when he says, well, no, it's the credit card companies or it's this loan and this bank, please show me the bank transaction where the bank or the credit card sent me the money. And just keep going backwards and forwards, and hopefully those people will be shut down. What is better, astral projection or meditation? Well, you can astral project in meditation, largely. A few who can do it outside of it. So meditation out of those two. Any info about paying our student loans, credit cards, house or car payments? Just carry on as normal. I'm not recommending people not pay. We just don't need people being arrested and fun and games at this time. Hopefully things will roll out in certain aspects rather quickly. Change is underway. The the time that we've been waiting for, draining the swamp, big names being dealt with, taken down, taken out, arrested, is pretty much unfolding now. These are the times we waited for. It's exciting. Once we get more confirms of certain names and I can release them, I will do. We will get to know before most people. Not necessarily all, but certainly most. And when safe to do so, I will put it out. If it's not safe, I won't be putting it out. If some people don't like the cryptic, don't read them. Simple as that. You know, I'm not putting people's lives at risk for the, Thomas has got an exclusive that such and such has been arrested. No, Thomas is not interested in exclusive. Thomas is interested in the safety of the people that are in harm's way. As it was said in the intel, Kim was nearly snatched out of her home. That's the third time, at least. And you got people wanting to shout her name and where she lives and where's her blog and where's this and where's that. I mean, you need to think different. Yes, people want to find out things, and we all want to find out things, but you've been shown sufficient proof that you really need to go digging that deep and putting people at risk. We lost a whole group of SEALs because Drake outed them. People around Wilcock who outed them got killed because Wilcock wanted the exclusive. Not this show or not. It gets put out when it's ready. Like I've said to you all many times, we're only going to get one chance at this. It has to be done right. It has to be done at the right time, by the right people, in the right place, at the right time. One slipped up comment here and there can get a whole team taken out very, very quickly. Whilst they're on the slide and we're on the rise, we just have to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more sensible, and other people need to be a lot more personally responsible with what they're putting out. Those putting out bullshit are going to get exposed badly in the coming months. They already have. That's why many of them are stepping down. So the Jesuits are in trouble. The Chinese elders are reduced. Mere laughingstock. The secret societies are, some of them anyway, are stepped down and helped. Nazis are being routed, and the Zionists are failing badly also. And I hope people start to think the future. Not about how is this person going to be dealt with, or are they going to be shot, lynched, but how are we going to, as one body of people, going to go forward for the better of for all. Those people are being dealt with currently, and they will be dealt with for many months. We also have to think of what we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives. That's all that matters at the end of the day. What we do, not what they do. What they used to do mattered, not no more. It's about us going forward as one, as I said, with a common goal. The betterment of humanity, where everyone has an abundance of what the basic needs in life, not an abundance of fancy cars and fancy houses and all that nonsense. That's what put us in this mess to begin with. It's all an illusion. But a stable and prosperous society that's got an abundance of the basic needs, with a proper education and some real health. That's all that matters at the end of the day. It's all that ever matters. As for the rest, well, the last song will say it all. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Should the need arise and we have updates that require a show, it will be publicised on the THI Facebook or MeWe. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I did. It's been a fun week. It's been a testing week, and spare a thought for the people who are in harm's way at this time. There are many, but we are winning. And like I said, just be nice to each other. At the end of the day, nothing else matters. Bye for now.